Here is a dish that I have been making recently and my family just loves it. So I thought I'd make this for you and just show you some of the different garden ingredients I'm going to use to make it. This time I'm using fresh tomatoes and peppers and green beans from the garden, though I've used potatoes from my garden to make it one time. Also something called rat's tail I used to make it. So anyway, if you want to make this from your grocery store, try to get some paste tomatoes. Those won't be as seedy as a slicing tomato. So like the Roma tomatoes would be great. And then I need some chilies here. So this is an African chili here. And this is actually a dish that comes from East Africa. So it's basically just chicken cooked on the bone in a coconut sauce. And I also want to get a few green beans from down here in my garden. Green beans are not typically put in this, but to minimize the cleanup of the dinner, I just throw whatever my side dish is in with the sauce, so it cooks that way. So you could put broccoli in here, carrots, or like I'm doing here, green beans. I've also put, as I mentioned before, something called rat's tail, and that was real good. It's kind of a bitter pod, like a radish pod. At any rate, I have been picking these green beans all summer long. These are the little jade green beans, and they're real tender, delicious. And I also want to grab some of this whole coriander. I need a couple of different spices for this, so I'm using my coriander. I also have some cumin, and then I want to have some hot chilies as well. The other ones that I picked that were from Africa were not that hot, so I want to put some red serranos in here. And I remembered too, I needed some cilantro, so I had this out on my container garden along with some of these little baby currant tomatoes. I think that would be almost like a nice little garnish for this dish. So here are the ingredients if you'd like to jot them down. They will also be below the video if you'd like to print them out. And as always, you can do just a little screenshot with your device. That way it'll make it easy to take to the grocery store. So I started by cleaning my coriander, and I showed you how to do this in my growing cilantro video. I'll leave a link below this video if you missed it. So basically for our fresh ingredients, this is what I'm using from my garden. I also really like the small potatoes for this. We'll need 1 onion, some garlic, lemon, and fresh ginger. So the spices that I'm using, of course, is the coriander and some whole cumin. And then I have a little bit of oil, some salt, and some chicken broth and some sugar. Now the first time I made this, I did not add chicken broth to it to thin it out a little bit, and I just used all coconut milk. So it was a lot thicker when I used all coconut milk, so that's kind of optional if you want to use a little bit of broth in there. I think I liked it better, but my son actually liked it a lot thicker, so that's just a personal preference. I'm also including sugar as an option because I'm using some very spicy peppers, and whenever I use spicy peppers, I taste it, and if it's too hot, I tend to put a little bit of sugar just to kind of bring down the heat a little bit. It won't seem as hot and spicy if I can adjust it with sugar later on. But that is just an option. If you're using, some really spicy peppers, you may want to include sugar too. So let's get started. We're just going to go ahead and toast off the cumin and the coriander. And I just do this until it starts to smell fragrant and aromatic, and then I'll go ahead and I'll grind it or put it in your mortar and pestle. I just put it in my little spice grinder. It is so much better when you do it this way too. But of course, if all you have is ground already, go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to grill the chicken. So I just went ahead and put it out on my counter on a pan so I can kind of bring it up in temperature a little bit because it was in the refrigerator. And since I'm going to grill it, I do want it to kind of sit out a little bit. So I went ahead and I sprinkled the skin side generously with salt, and then about 1 teaspoon each of the coriander and the cumin. And I like to just run it through here. That way it's nice and fine and it's easy for me to coat the chicken. And I'll just cover it up while I go ahead and get the little paste made. It's actually pretty easy to do. We're just going to basically make a little paste and put some coconut milk in it, okay? So I want to go ahead and prep these tomatoes. I just cut away a little bad spot here on this tomato and remove the seeds. I'm just going to leave the skin on because we're going to puree all this down. And I went ahead, I did the same thing with my chilies. And I want to prep the ginger, and just with the back of a spoon I went ahead and I peeled it. And then the garlic, I like to cut off the root end of the garlic and then just give it a little press there and peel it. And I'm just going to chop the ginger up a little bit to make it easier for the blender. So in my little Vitamix, I went ahead, I added my onion, added the ginger and the garlic, the tomatoes, and the peppers. Couldn't fit all of the tomatoes in at this point, but I did go ahead and add the 1 teaspoon of salt and then the rest of the cumin and the coriander. And pulsed it down pretty good and continued to add the rest of the tomatoes. And so this is about the consistency I was looking for. And so now I want to cook it down. And so in about 1 tablespoon of safflower oil on medium heat, I went ahead and added the tomato puree. And I'm just going to reduce this. Meanwhile, I already had some coals going for the chicken. So I went ahead, I put that on the grill. Skin side down at first, and I don't want to burn it, so I did go back inside real quick to check on my tomato puree here, the little sauce I'm making, and it was reducing nicely. So I continued on checking on my chicken, and I just wanted to go ahead and cook this pretty good. So I went ahead and I removed them from the direct heat, and I moved them off to the side so they won't burn. And my sauce was reducing nicely, so it was thickening up perfectly. I went ahead and I added a little bit of the chicken broth. And then I added my potatoes and went ahead and I covered those up and let those cook. I checked on my chicken one more time. It was looking pretty good. So I went ahead and added the green beans. And then I checked my chicken with the thermometer in the thickest part of the thigh, and it was at the perfect temperature at around 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And the sauce was looking great, so everything was coming together perfectly. So I went ahead and I added the coconut milk, and this is my favorite coconut milk. I'll leave a link below the video. I was surprised to find that it is on Amazon, so at the same price that I pay for it at the Asian market. And it's an Amazon Prime item, so I was thrilled to see that. And then I added my chicken thighs to it and let it simmer for about 10 minutes and added some fresh cilantro leaves. Oh, and I almost forgot to tell you too, I added lemon earlier when I added the coconut milk. So I added some lemon juice with some lemon zest, okay? And then there you go. It was so delicious. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Perfect if you want to grill out. And just that sauce just makes it so wonderful. And like I said, you can be creative with this and add different kind of vegetables, but typically you use potatoes and then the chicken on the bone, and you grill the chicken. But you can cook the chicken in the sauce and you don't have to grill it out too. And the little fresh tomatoes on top and the cilantro made it wonderful. So I hope you can give this a try. I have a lot of other recipes too over on my channel. You're welcome to check them out over on the playlist section. It'll give you some ideas for different things that you can make with things that you might be growing in your garden. And as always, please feel free to share this on your favorite social media platform. I sure would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and y'all have a beautiful day.